Kathleen, how about a roll call?
Commissioner Blanco,
Here.
Commissioner Hernandez,
Here.
Commissioner Lopez,
Here.
Commissioner Seifert,
Here.
Chair Dickerson.
Here. Let's see, we have the meeting minutes from the October 19th meeting. If everybody's had a chance to look at them, if there's any comments, or if we can have a motion for approval.
I'm going to abstain from those, Chair.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the October 19th Planning Commission meeting minutes.
A second?
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
All right, thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And one abstention, is that correct? Okay, there we go. Dana, do you have a little comment about Zoom?
Yes, thank you, Chair Dickerson. This is Dana Eady, the Planning Division Manager. If you wish to comment on an agenda item and you are on Zoom, please use the raised hand icon on the Zoom platform. Once you are recognized, you will then be unmuted and allowed to comment on the business at hand in the order received. The maximum comment time is 3 minutes or is otherwise directed by the chair. If you are calling in and wish to be acknowledged, please raise your hand by dialing *9 and identify yourself when unmuted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to public comment period. Each member of the audience may address the commission on any subject within the commission's business. Each member of the audience and each subject is limited to discussion of 3 minutes or is otherwise directed by the chair. These are for items not already on the agenda. Would anybody like to comment about anything not on the agenda? Anything in the universe there? No? All right, then we will move on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar is approved with one motion. These items are read only on request of commission members. Should anyone, including members of the public, wish to discuss or disapprove of any item, it must be dropped from the blanket motion and considered as a separate item. Is there something about this item? Dana?
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. I believe that you do have a request to speak on this item by the applicant. So we would want to go ahead and pull this item from the consent agenda and have it as a public hearing item. And I believe he has a request for a continuance, but I'll let him make that request.
Okay. So do we just pull it, Heather, or do we actually vote to pull it?
You can just go ahead and
All right, we'll go
open
ahead.
it up and let the applicant come forward.
All right, we'll go ahead and pull it then. And does the staff have to give a presentation, or do we just, okay, why don't we hear from the applicant then? Mr. Alvarez, if you could state your name and your address for the record, please.
Thank you. So, Ruby Alvarez, 246 Egret Lane, Guadalupe. Good evening. Congratulations to the councilwoman-elect. Wish you the best. I know you do a fine job. Yes, we're on the agenda, and I am requesting the continuance because we just received some late information yesterday, and I wanted to verify that with my engineer. I haven't had a chance. I just received that yesterday, last minute, right before business day finished. So I'm requesting respectfully to ask for a continuance for 1 month.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
Thank you, Commissioners. I did forget to mention that when I spoke with Mr. Alvarez just a few moments ago, we mentioned December 7th as the continuance date. That's the only hearing we have scheduled for December, and he indicated that would work for him.
Okay. So do we make a motion to continue it then? All right, do we hear?
I move that we continue Oakley Court Apartments permit amendment at 800 block of South Oakley Court.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
And let us move on to item number 2, the continued item of Avante Apartments, tentative parcel map and plan development permit at the southwest corner of Carmen Lane and South Blosser Road.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to say that I was absent at this meeting, and I did go ahead and watch the whole hearing on YouTube, so I'm familiar with the hearing, and I think I can sit in and be a part of this.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Commissioner Seifert. Why don't we go ahead and hear from staff?
Okay. Thank you, Chair Dickerson. Good evening. I'm Cody Graybell, Senior Planner with the City. And tonight I'll be presenting the Avante Apartments Plan Development Permit and tentative parcel map, proposing 86 market rate apartment units and a 2-parcel subdivision. This is at the the southwest corner of Carmen Lane and South Blosser Road, and it was continued from October 19th to tonight in order to allow staff a little bit more time to look into the required bus turnout and the costs of the shelter. So tonight, planning is going to provide a brief recap of the project, and then after that, the Transit Division Manager, Gamaliel Anguiano, will be providing an update on the bus turnout and the shelter via Zoom, and then we'll have the recommendation. So this project is in the southwest portion of the city. It's right at the corner of Carmen Lane and South Blosser Road here. And the zoning is PDR3, which is Planned Development High Density Residential. And this project is proposing the maximum allowable density of 22 dwelling units an acre. And the site is surrounded by a wide range of land uses and zoning designations, including residential, commercial, industrial, and public facility zoning. So there's no changes to the project from the first meeting. It's still 86 apartment units in 4 different buildings on 2 separate parcels. The setbacks, landscaping, and architecture all remain the same. And here's the condition of approval that was mentioned earlier that staff needed a little bit more time to look into regarding the cost. This is the bus turnout condition. So it includes the installation of a bus turnout as well as the construction of a shelter and ADA wheelchair area. So next, I'm going to be turning it over to Mr. Anguiano, and he's going to be presenting on Zoom, providing a little more info about the bus turnout.
Hello, thank you, commissioners. Sorry I couldn't be with you in person today, but I'm happy to participate remotely and advocate for the needs of our transit riders and the rest of our community. So I thought I'd share a little bit of the insights of what goes into the decision-making for bus stop placement and pullouts. So really, we look at the project not only as a standalone project, but what's happening up and down the corridor in which it's located. So as you see on the map, we have the project site. Of course, as you're well aware, there are a number of other projects happening throughout the Blosser corridor, happening immediately across the street, and then 2 large developments further north on the Blosser corridor. In addition, Blosser has a number of what we call trip generators. There's one immediately in proximity, the CHC medical facility, and then we have 2 school sites on either side of Blosser. Between the infill housing and the additional developments and these trip generators, we're going to almost immediately necessitate a new transit route heading north and south up and down Blosser. We've already started the process with the other developments and included identified locations for all future bus stops up and down the corridor, with the applicants being the remaining piece needed to have a full, complete transit system. That would be the location of the bus pull-out. Thank you for indicating it. So again, we're not looking at just the project alone, but what is happening in that whole corridor and what that will necessitate. Kind of summarizing much of what goes into it is the next slide. We ask ourselves a number of series of questions. First, is the project on an arterial or collector street? The answer is yes. Blosser is an arterial road, and that's appropriate for transit to be on, and that's usually where we need it, on these arterial and collector roads. The next question we would ask ourselves is the project, is it or is it adjacent to a trip generator? In this case, we would say the project is adjacent to a trip generator, being the CHC medical facility and some of the other public facilities that are nearby in proximity. So we would again say yes to this. The next question we would ask, is the project adjacent to dense housing? In this case, the project is dense housing. Dense housing typically being accompanied by high ridership, usually because of affordability issues. So again, we would check this box as affirmative. This project is dense housing. Is the project approximately 1/4 mile from the prior stop? And as you saw on the previous map, this would again put that location, the project site, very strategically placed, approximately a fourth of a mile from the previous bus stop location. So again, yes. And then really importantly is, does this project also complete the paired bus stops? The project across the street has gladly and willingly put in a bus, or is going to be putting in a bus stop, as well as developments north of the project. And so the project site is essential to complete the paired stop. The point being that a transit rider needs a way to travel one direction and a way to return that same direction. So paired bus stops across the street from each other is ideal for any transit riders. So again, we would say yes. And of course, we want to be consistent and fair with all our applicants, and so is the project consistent with other projects? And that's kind of really important to point out. This condition of approval of a bus pullout and bus shelter has been made with all the applicants up and down the Blosser corridor. And so it is our desire to be consistent with that. Any special leeway for this applicant could put the city in a precarious position in which there's a new precedent set. I'd also want to point out that any one of these questions alone is reason to consider a bus stop. But in this case, the applicant has checked off all of them. So what is being requested is the latest iteration of the bus stop that we're trying to bring to Santa Maria. And that'll be in this next slide. This is an improvement over the current model, which has a number of challenges and will eventually be discontinued. So in the illustrated graphic you have above, that is the full complete kit with all its features and amenities. However, we are happy to work with the applicant to scale it down to almost the bare essentials. That being included, we would be fine with deleting the trash can with the savings of costs there, deleting the walls. That is any number of reasons, but we could also achieve some savings there. Delete the wall map case, delete the 20-watt bus stop light, because we're going to go with the 40-watt, and we only need one public information display. We would be fine with deleting the 13-inch e-paper display, as we would go with the Wayside sign, and then we could delete the U bike loop. So again, this is an earnest attempt to work with the applicant. We put the approximate cost to just under $30,000. This again would be consistent with what we've required and requested of the other developments up and down the Blosser, and as we would moving forward with any other development in the city. All right, I think the next slide. Again, we're happy to provide with the applicant. This is what the applicant would receive from the manufacturer of the bus shelter. And as we struck out a number of the issues, would change the bottom line of the cost.
And then Chair Dickerson, members of the commission, this is Mark Mueller, Principal Civil Engineer for the Public Works Department. I'd like to note on the estimate that was provided to you by the applicant is consistent with the costs that the Public Works Department estimated itself. One minor adjustment would be, I think we can locate these turnout in a location that would not require the movement of a street light, but it would require the movement of a fire hydrant for approximately the same cost. So that'd be, they're approximately the same in terms of our estimate. So about $35,000.
Thank you. Further from staff?
Okay, thank you, Chair Dickerson. Thanks, Mark and Gamaliel, for providing those figures and updates. So in conclusion, staff recommends that the Planning Commission by resolution approve the addendum to the mitigated negative declaration prepared for the Serramonte Townhomes projects, and then by resolution approve the tentative parcel map TR 2022-0002, and by motion approve the plan development permit PD 2021-0013. And the applicant is in attendance tonight, so we're both available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cody. Let's start off with disclosure by commissioners of any ex parte communication. Has there been any outside communication? And none
No.
from me as well. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for staff at this time?
Excuse me, Chair. I had a brief conversation with Lori Tamura about this a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
But it was very, very brief.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions at this time from commissioners or staff?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
The applicant's point.
When we're done asking questions of if there is any. Commissioner Seifert?
Thank you,
Do you have
Chair.
a question? Go ahead.
What is our transit man's name? Is he still on, or is he gone?
No, I'm here. Thank you. Gamaliel Anguiano. Everyone calls me Jay. You're welcome to as well.
Thank you, Jay. Do we have any of these in the town, in the city right now? These
So
shelters?
this would be, no, not yet. This would be the new model. As I talked to Toller Manufacturing, this is what they're migrating to. This is, but I would say the latest improvement on the transit shelter environment. So the developments happening on Blosser are already moving forward with this model, and this model would replace any failing units that we have currently and would be the one we request of any developments moving forward.
And these way signs and paper cast displays, they're quite expensive. Have we ever used these before?
I believe the city of Santa Maria has demoed them in the past prior to my arrival here. But again, this is an important amenity. We are helping folks that are generally low income, don't always have a smartphone, and real-time information is an ideal way to use public transit, as it helps alleviate many of the uncertainties of using public transit.
Have we done any research as to far as the graffiti or or what's going to happen to these shelters? I mean, this is expensive equipment. Are we thinking that this is going to be not damaged or vandalized? Is there safety features involved in these?
Oh, yeah, there absolutely are. Thank you for bringing that up. The Waysign specifically has a geolocator that makes them inert when they've been removed from their geospace, right? So the manufacturer says, we know where they're at in space. They're geofencing. When they're removed from that geofencing illegitimately, they become inactive and just not functional for anybody who's stealing these. I'm quite familiar with the product from my prior work in the city of San Luis Obispo. I'm also talked to other transit agencies that deployed these. The feedback has been positive. Now, are they going to be vandal-proof? Is anything vandal-proof? I couldn't guarantee that, but if we're going to forego assisting passengers because of that fear, I mean, that's certainly the prerogative of the commission.
And we're saying that we can eliminate which one was it? The way sign or the paper cast?
The paper cast, it would be redundant to the way sign.
Okay, so there's $9,100 right off the bat. But the way sign is something that you say that we're going to utilize and it's necessary?
Yeah, if you meant yourself to be a transit rider, there's a lot of uncertainty. You're gonna hope you didn't miss the bus. These wait signs provide immediate, real-time information on when the bus is arriving, or if you need to seek alternative transportation. And I guess if I could advocate, we often look at bus shelters from a perspective as a automobile operator, right? But transit riders are dependent on buses, and information about bus use is extremely important.
Thank you very much for your help.
Thank you, Commissioner Seifert. Further questions of staff? No? All right. Sir, if we can hear from you, and if you can state your name and address, business address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Steve Simolis, 2159 San Luis Drive, San Luis Obispo. So I was tasked at last meeting to come up with prices for this. So I provided basically a summary on the front here of the turnout and the shelter. The shelter, if you look at the following pages from the Vice President of TOLAR, he provided the costs. One thing, just initially on the conditions of approval, it says using the Cal Act /MBT contract. So I can't, according to TOLAR, I can't purchase that. You have to be a transit agency to do that. They can't sell to private parties. So first off, I can't buy it. And the second thing, well, that was the main thing. I couldn't buy that. So one other thing to notice, I guess backing up to my original case last meeting was, I saw the checklist that transit guy put up there, but this project has an approved 88 townhome project on it. I'm just revising this to an 86 apartment project. The project, the Serramonte Townhomes, didn't require a bus stop or a shelter. And it looks like there's a lot of other developments. You know, it was compared to the Betteravia Plaza, which is a trip generator. And, you know, that project is 10 times larger than mine. I'm 4 acres, that's 40. It just seems I'm like the small guy here, and I'm being burdened with this cost. It's, you know, approximately $80,000. It seems like there's a global transit plan based on the diagram they were showed. So, you know, it seems, and I know that the transit department has a $2 million capital budget for improvements like this already. So, you know, I'm not opposed to, you know, installing this as part of my project, but I'd just like the city to reimburse it because I think it's more of a global, you know, transit plan more than just burdening me with 100% of these costs when I'm not really the driver.
Okay, thank you. Questions for the applicant? No? No? All right. I do have a question. So are the, is the price we're seeing here, I mean, had you been notified of?
This is all new to me. I haven't seen any of this.
Okay, so basically we can kind of take that back down and is by
Yeah, I mean,
29.5,
if you
right?
look in the following pages, like the vice president of Tolar, you know, he spells it all out, excluding like installation. So I have a number there for that. And I don't know if those numbers include like the freight and other things like that, but, and this also doesn't have any like contractor markup. These are just the hard costs. So you know, assume add another 10, 15% or whatever a general contractor would mark these up.
And I do recognize that you hadn't seen this before, but part of what you came back to ask was, is there some sort of a middle ground for you in the city? It sounds like the city has come back with middle ground stuff that's 29.5. So so the city has basically accommodated you as you asked, in that they have made a good faith effort to lower the pricing.
I don't know if it's essentially 29.5 based on the numbers I have from Tolar. You know, it's, you know, excluding the paper cast display, $9,100 knocked off. So, you know, it's still 37,000, which is, you know, 8,000 more than what you have there. Plus the cost of the turnout itself, which is in addition to the shelter, which is, you know, approximately 33,000 before any contractor markup.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
Yes, so the 29,500 would be reduced from the cost to the applicant? Is that what the city is saying? It would be reimbursed to the applicant?
Not reimbursed.
Councilmember Hernandez, no, I believe that's just the bare bones cost of the shelter, not what the city is proposing to reimburse the applicant.
So this would be the cost to the applicant,
Correct, for the shelter.
and he has different numbers. You have,
Yeah, mine has installation costs more than just buying it, and, you know, I think much more of the actual costs before markup. So I didn't have an itemized list of what you guys have, but I think there was like a quote or something there a couple pages back. If it looked like I had Tolar letterhead on it, but I mean, I got numbers straight from the vice president, so I'm pretty sure they're equal, except for the whole Cal Act contract language that's in the condition of, you know, again, which I'm not allowed to buy it.
so I have a question.
Go ahead.
So would you be willing to pay the 29.5 and make that the cap?
Well, I guess that's partial. What about the cost of the turnout itself? If you recall, there's a turnout that's one block up the street that's abandoned that isn't also in this new plan, the new transit map you just showed. So, I mean, I'm still kind of pushing back on that because I'm the small guy here.
Mark, do you have a response to that?
Response to what directly? The cost for the turnout? I don't believe we have it in our ability to reimburse him. There's not it's not identified in a growth mitigation program. These are part of his frontage improvements.
And if I could add just one thing.
Yes.
I think another way to look at it, I just checked the numbers. What the city has done is we've reduced $11,100 in cost, just purely off the numbers shown on the screen.
Right, so my question is to the applicant, would you be willing to pay this if that is the cap, and anything above that you wouldn't be responsible for?
Maybe I'm responsible for installing the turnout, this $33,000, and the city could reimburse the cost of the shelter and installation.
I'd just like saying, and I think Heather's about ready to jump in, but this body, I do not believe, has the authority to actually reimburse, to put any money aside. That is not our thing. So we don't even have the ability to bring it up as a, oh yeah, let's go ahead and cut this cost, and give you half, and we'll, we don't have that.
I understand. This was a condition of approval that you guys would have, voted on today, so that's why I'm bringing it up now. And if it has to get passed up to council, maybe we can approve everything else is fine.
Heather, did you have a?
I was just going to add, I'm not sure if it's clear, I don't know, maybe if Mr. Mueller Mr. Mueller would want to add some clarification, but the frontage improvements have to be done on this anyways. So it's not like they have to tear stuff out and build a turnout. They're going to already be doing the frontage improvements. So I would think that adding the turnout to brand-new frontage improvements is different than having it already all built and having to put in a turnout.
Slightly correct, Heather. That would be, I believe, the numbers that the applicant has provided and the cost of installing or tearing out existing improvements and installing a turnout. This delta, the amount that he's provided is roughly equivalent to what I think is the delta between if there was just curb gutter sidewalk and we had them tear out and install a new turnout, the delta of that what's there and what we're requiring versus what we would have required if we weren't installing a turnout. This amount represents that difference. Please let me know if I'm being clear.
And I agree with that. So, this is in addition to the, curb gutter sidewalk I would put in on a standard frontage. This is the turnout square footage with, the concrete, ramp the bus parks on and whatnot. So this is just in addition to what my frontage on standard frontage.
Okay, so the curb gutter sidewalk you're required to do?
Yes, and this item here is just the cost to do in addition for a turnout. So there's extra footage of curbing because it's curved and whatnot. It's broken down there.
So how do we get the breakdown?
Well, I don't know. This is it. I guess what I'm agreeing to right now is, I would be paying for this turnout as part of my frontage improvements, but the city could put in the shelter.
So I just wanted, thank you. So first, we do still have our transit manager, G, available to address any of these questions, and I think we should give him the opportunity to do that. Also, it is a condition of approval on this project. As the chair mentioned, the commission does not have discretion to come up with reimbursement agreements and things like that. This is a condition that came from the transit manager, utilities department for this project. So if your commission would like to hear from the transit manager again to answer any of these questions or clarify anything, he is available. And that's what I was going to add, so thank you.
I would like to hear from the transit manager, and then we'll do additional questions.
Yes, thank you, I'm available.
Is there anything else, is there anything you'd like to add as you've heard the discussion?
Sure. I think it's just really important to emphasize that the applicant, the request for the applicant is consistent with what we're doing with all the developments up and down the Blosser corridor and anywhere else in the city. To forego this request would be granting a special privilege that is unique to this applicant. We've never done that with any of the other ones. And I'm a little nervous about the precarious position that puts in the city is it could create a new precedent. The request is consistent.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Did you have a question, Issa?
Well, I'm trying to think of a question, but maybe just, it doesn't seem like this is a deal breaker for the project. I would imagine, maybe that's a question for you. This is a deal breaker for
Yeah,
approval?
I mean, this is all, because the phase project here, this is all upfront initial costs. So it really front-end loads the cost for me to, I'm sure you're aware, rates are going up, costs are going up. This is, it's a very tight, market out there, and all these costs really add up, and to me, it's a burden.
But is it a deal breaker, or, it doesn't seem to me, but that's the
Well,
question.
It's cumulative. I mean, what individually may not be a deal breaker, but, that's a big cost, and that's cash up front. For frontage that has to be performed in the phase one.
So if it's approved as a condition and we move forward, and you have the opportunity to appeal that at council, is that an option for you?
I don't quite understand that process. Can we approve this in substantial conformity with the conditions and have council make a call on the dollars?
Maybe that's the question I'm asking, I don't know.
The way I would envision this is if the commission wants to approve the project with the condition, they can, and then the applicant can appeal to the city council and request that the council alleviate that condition in some way. Everyone always has an appeal right.
Okay, that's what I was thinking, so, that would be my thought. It sounds like that might be the most we can't make a decision, we can't make a determination on a cost share, we don't have the authority, so if you want to negotiate, we're kind of in the wrong setting for that.
Yeah, it sounds like an all or nothing scenario at this point.
Yeah, it sounds like an all or nothing, and so that's why I asked if it's a deal breaker. I didn't think it would be, but
I'm
you
not going to
didn't.
stop the project because of this. I'll have to, bring that forward again. But,
Yeah.
I just thought I'd bring this up to the commission, the situation, I'm at when I submitted this project a year ago, this never came up until right at the end, 6-7 months after I submitted, all of a sudden this transit bus stops came out of nowhere right before our hearing. So to me, it was kind of put on me late too. So, there's a whole sequence of, backstory to where this came from and why it surprised me. And it's a big cost, so almost $100,000.
I think it's a valid question. I don't think it's nothing. Obviously, it's a good cost. It's a valid question and a valid concern. I just don't know the path forward. It sounds like we need, we need a path forward, and I'm trying to understand how much of a burden
I'm not
this
going to
could
stop the entitlement process for this. It sounds to me like kind of backed me into an appeal scenario.
But it sounds like you may have recourse beyond here. Obviously, you always do. We just got affirmation from our assistant city attorney, so it sounds like that might be the only option at this point.
Yeah, I just was appealing to see, for fairness with the scenario that how this played out and the dollar amount is just, and these other projects I'm being compared to, they're just much larger projects. Percentage-wise, that was something you brought up last time, a small percentage. To those projects, this is nothing. This is still a percentage for me.
Any further questions for the applicant? No? No further questions? All right, thank you very much. Let's open the meeting to the public as well. I don't see any slips. Is there anybody online?
There are no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, I'll give it a moment or two, just to make sure that nobody wants to raise their hands. And with that, we'll go ahead and bring it back and close it to the public and discussions on the project. Do we have anybody who wants? Commissioner Seifert.
Thank you, Chair. So I watched the YouTube thing, the video today, and I'm listening to this hearing tonight, and it seems like...
Oh, he has something else.
I'm sorry, we've closed it to the public. There we go. Go ahead.
It seems like we're just continuing the same discussion, which we've already been told that we really cannot rule on. So I think it's a good project. I want to approve the project. I want to move it through with it. But I think that the applicant does have a remedy for this situation, and I don't think that remedy is us, from what I've heard. So I just think we're in the wrong venue for this discussion, and I think this is a city council decision as to whether GE is going to get his shelter and his turnout, or what the city council, what the mayor thinks about this. It's a financial situation which we can't do anything with. So as far as I'm concerned, I would like to see it move off. I just think it needs to move on.
Commissioner?
Dana?
Dana, did you have something?
Thanks, Commissioners. I did just speak with the applicant, and he did want to share one other piece of information, but it's of course, at the chair's, it's the chair's decision whether to open that back up.
All right, we'll go ahead and open it up to the public again. Sir?
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. One more clarification is the shelter is not in the city standards, but the turnout is. So what this project is being conditioned is something that's not in the city standards. So you could modify the condition that I have to install the turnout per city standards, but the shelter's not a city standard. So I don't know how you can force me to do something that's not a standard. That's all.
Is that it?
Yep.
You done? It's closed. The public hearing is closed. Further, do you have any comments?
Yeah. As I stated in the meeting, the last meeting we had, you're talking about one extra unit, and now this condition was added. I think we should follow the city standards, and we should have conditions, but it's really difficult for someone to go through the process, and then at the end, they add another condition that does add, significant amount of money. So for that reason, I do have a problem with this condition. I think that we need to be open, and when applicants are going through the process, be upfront as much as we can. I know that it's not always possible, but, really try to give as much information as we can. And it sounds like the applicant feels that this wasn't disclosed, and that's why he has a problem with it. So I would be open to approving the project without the condition, but I do want to see this move forward.
Commissioner?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So I understand the cost, and obviously it's fairly substantial. And listening to G, I appreciate the understanding of how the transit system works and how they try to implement the shelters and the facilities. And it sounds like this is pretty typical of other projects, and so I don't see how it's excessive in terms of that. This cost, although pretty big, it's not a small lot with a couple of units. It's a reasonably sized development. I'm really a supporter of transit anyways. I use transit on a regular basis, so I understand the importance of it, and I think it's going to bring great value to the project anyhow. So I think it'd be an asset for the development. That's just my personal opinion on it. So I'm sensitive to it. I'm glad that we've talked it through in another meeting, but I'd like to see the project move forward, and I think, there is recourse if the applicant does want to appeal to the city council. I think that's obviously his prerogative, and has another avenue to do that. But I'd love for the project to move forward. I think it's a nice project. It'd be good to do something there. The Serramonte, they got approved, a couple of years ago. Just kind of was waiting for something to happen, and now if something could move forward, I think it'd be really nice. So I would support the project with the condition.
Commissioner Lopez?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I'm in agreement with Commissioner Seifert, Commissioner Hernandez. It's kind of tough for me. I do agree that it should have come up front as a standard bus shelter. In the past, I think the bus shelters they didn't have the electronics that they're proposing now. I think, I don't know, it's tough for me. It really is. I see that it isn't just a small amount of money. In the grand scheme of things, what is it, 1%, 0.5%? I don't know. It is, $100,000 is a lot of money. Okay, and when you look at it, we'll look at what the city's worked with. We've given up some flexibility on easements, on setbacks. We've looked at even getting rid of relocating the fire hydrant. I don't know what that cost was. Was there a cost on that?
Commissioner Lopez, no, there isn't one on the applicant's estimate.
Right.
I estimate it is about relatively the same as the moving the streetlight, about $5,000.
Okay. So they tried, the Transit Division tried to work out something that might be a little bit more palatable for Mr. Samolis. I don't know, I'd like to move this along. I just think the only way we can is with that condition still in place. There is that recourse of appealing to the city council, because they're ultimately going to make that decision to remove that condition or keep it. So I'd like to move this forward. I think that, honestly, I think it had a really smooth road to get to where it's at, other than this bus shelter. A lot of the times, it's not so easy, especially adjacent to other neighborhoods. So I'd like to see this move forward, and I wouldn't mind seeing that condition on there. And maybe they can work something out with staff with respect to the cost, and then appeal to the city council if it's not favorable.
Thank you, Commissioner
Thank you.
Lopez. My opinion on the matter is that, first of all, I think that transit staff did look at it, and they've been willing to carve back, looks like about 11,000 change off of the bus stop. You know, my opinion is not swayed from the last time this came up, and the bottom line is that it's part of the compact. The compact is that there's development, and from that springs improvements to our roadways. And so from that standpoint, I think that this is just one of the improvements that is required. And so for me, I think that, like Commissioner Lopez said, you know, if it's something that the applicant, after we've done our thing, wants to appeal to the city council, they certainly can. But what I would like to see is the project approved with the condition in there, minus the amounts that staff has indicated that they would be willing to carve off that list that had about $11,000. And then at that point, if the applicant wants to, that's not satisfactory, then they can appeal it. But once again, we don't really have an ability to, we do have the ability to not require this condition, but I think it's been said multiple times in multiple ways that that would be a very, very bad precedent, because if we do that for you, then trust me, you will not be the first person to ask for that. And then they'll say, but how come? And then we'll have to explain each and every time. So from that standpoint, it would be a horrible precedent to send, bad policy. But that's my opinion, and it may not be the others. And so that's it for what I have to say on it. If nobody else has anything to say, we're going to need a resolution and that sort of thing. But at what level, I don't know. So does anyone want to make something? Commissioner
Thank you,
Seifert.
Chair. I would be keeping this condition in with the amount reduced. By resolution, I would approve the amendment to the mitigated negative declaration prepared by the Saramonte Townhome Project. By resolution, approve tentative map.
One at a time.
Is that one?
Yes, please, one at a time.
The first one.
Okay.
And then do them. Okay, so we need a second.
Second.
Okay. Can I get a roll call?
Commissioner Seifert.
Aye.
Commissioner Hernandez.
Aye.
Commissioner Blanco.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Chair Dickerson.
Aye.
By resolution, approve tentative parcel map TR 2022-0002.
Second.
Can I get a roll call?
Commissioner Seifert.
Aye.
Commissioner Hernandez.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Commissioner Blanco.
Aye.
Chair Dickerson.
Aye. And then we
Aye.
need a motion.
By motion, approve plan development permit PD 2021-0013.
And can I just interject, did you also want to include then that the items to be deducted from the mandate for the shelter that were depicted on the slide would in fact be deducted?
Yeah, I think he put that in
I
there
thought I
at the
said that.
beginning.
He did
Yes.
that, the
Yeah.
resolution.
You did,
it
but
goes
I
with
just
the
wanted to
plan.
clarify it as we're doing each separately, and that relates to this last action. So
I see.
I just wanted to get that real clear on the record.
Yes, what the transit, what G was deducting, I want that in this motion. Does that work?
Okay. We need a
Okay.
second.
Second.
Kathleen, why don't we go ahead and get a roll call on that, too?
Commissioner Seifert?
Aye.
Commissioner Hernandez?
Aye.
Commissioner Blanco?
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez?
Aye.
Chair Dickerson?
Aye. Thank you very much, sir, and start taking a look if you want to appeal it, the process, so there you go. We're going to move on to item number 3. It is my understanding that item number 3 and item number 4, Commissioner Hernandez will be recusing herself from, so she will be excusing herself for the remainder of the meeting. That being said, I was going to mention something during oral reports, but I'll mention it now. Commissioner Hernandez ran for office, and as one of our own, she has succeeded at being a city council, being voted in as a city council member. So I just want to congratulate you, and we're going to miss you tremendously.
Thank you. And as part of my success, a lot of people were part of my campaign committee, and the applicant for the next 2 items was on the committee for my campaign, so I will be recusing myself. Thank you. You guys have a good night.
Thank you. All right, item number 3, Presker RV Storage Plan Development Permit and Conditional Use Permit at 2210 North Presker Lane. Can we hear from staff?
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. This is Dana Eady, the Planning Manager. So this this item is a request for a plan development and a conditional use permit for recreational vehicle storage at 2210 North Presker Lane. This project was last reviewed by your commission on March 17th, when it was at that time a pre-application. So the 3-acre project site is located on Presker Lane. It's approximately 500 feet north of the intersection of Broadway and Presker Lane. The adjacent surrounding development includes Boomers to the north, Hampton Inn and Wendy's to the south, the Presker Gardens residential subdivision to the west, and then the Carpenters Union site, which is directly to the east, and that is currently under construction. The site is located in an area of the city that can experience traffic impacts, and that's particularly at the North Broadway and Presker Lane intersection. And in particular, the residences that utilize that intersection do experience traffic congestion issues during the peak hour commute times. And that's the intersection down here. So the site is zoned Plan Development General Commercial, and as you can see in this slide, the surrounding sites are also zoned Plan Development General Commercial. The Presker Gardens residential subdivision to the west is zoned single-family residential, and then there's some freeway service zoning to the southeast. So this is an aerial view of the project site, and the site is currently vacant. And for some background on this area, the property was formerly developed with a campground. I think it was a KOA. And a general plan amendment and rezone was completed in 2018, and that established the existing general commercial zoning that's currently in place at the property. The Carpenters Union Training Facility is, as I mentioned, currently under construction on the adjacent parcel. And this site does not have direct street frontage. And so there are 2 existing easements that are located over the project site, and those easements are in favor of the Carpenters Union site. So there's a 40-foot easement located along the northern property line, and then there's a 50-foot easement located along the southern property line. And those are shown here in the green shading. This is a view of the vacant project site from Presker Lane. The site is currently being used for construction staging for the Carpenters Union project that you can see being constructed in the background. So this project is proposing the storage of RVs and trailers, 129 spaces, of which 72 would be covered. And the shaded areas here are where the covered carports would be located for the RVs, just through the center of the property. Perimeter fencing and landscaping would enclose the project site from North Presker Lane. And access to the Carpenters Union would remain across the northern easement that's in place. And then the southern easement that's in place would be vacated as a part of this project. It's a condition of approval that occur prior to the issuance of any building permits for this particular project. And so this is the primary entrance and exit for the RV storage site would be on the southern area here, and then this area would remain in place for the Carpenters Union along the northern property line. So the project's utility plan proposes utility connections that will tie into the existing laterals for the Carpenters Union site to the east. And an example of this is the proposed sewer lateral connection that's shown in this slide. So the yellow line is the Carpenters Union sewer lateral, and then this is a example of the proposed sewer lateral that ties directly into that. And so the Public Works Department has determined that since these laterals are privately owned and maintained, that connecting directly to them is not consistent with the city's standard specification for pipeline easements. And so the Public Works Department has included conditions of approval in the permit that require the corrected utility configuration that meets the city's utility connection standards. And Mark Mueller, our city's principal civil engineer, is here, and he can answer questions if you have any on that item. Drought-tolerant landscaping is proposed throughout the site, and it's a total of 21% landscaping, and 15% is required. And the trees would be installed along the perimeter of the site and along the frontage of the site. So these are the elevations of the modular unit for the on-site manager, and the design of the trash enclosure is shown on the lower left-hand side, as well as the design of the carports. The carports will include solar panels that are installed on the roof. And this is a view of the completed project as it would be seen from Presker Lane. So the City of Santa Maria's general plan circulation element states that an acceptable level of service for intersections is D or better. And so there's a March 2021 traffic study that was completed, and that determined that for the Broadway and Presker Lane intersection, as well as the US 101 and 135 north and southbound ramps, those are both currently operating at a level of service of F. So it's an unacceptable level of service currently. There was a traffic study that was completed for this project in particular, and that traffic study determined that the RV storage project would result in 25 trips per day, and that 4 of those would occur during the peak commute times. And the traffic study mentions that the amount of traffic generated by the project that would be similar to a mini warehouse or storage facility, and that it would not further exacerbate the area intersection operations due to the low amount of traffic that would be generated. And so our city Public Works Department reviewed the traffic study, and they did concur with this determination. One thing that's important to note about this area of the city is that due to the level of service F at this intersection, this particular site is somewhat constrained in the type and intensity of retail commercial development that could be developed there, because it's based on the amount of traffic that would be generated. So the types of uses that go on this site need to be uses that aren't going to result in further impacts to this intersection. And until infrastructure modifications are made to those other intersections, it's going to be difficult to add much more traffic to that area. So the project, as I mentioned, is located within the C2 zone district. The purpose of the C2 zone is to provide a wide range of retail and service needs to the city. RV storage is not specifically listed as a conditionally permitted use in the C2 zone, but the Planning Commission may approve uses that are not listed, and you have the discretion to do that, provided that required findings are made. And a couple of those findings in particular are that the use that is proposed is not more obnoxious or detrimental than other conditionally permitted uses in the zone, and that the use that you are considering is compatible with adjoining land uses. And so in this case, when staff reviewed this request, we looked at the other uses, conditionally permitted uses that are called out in the C2 zone, and many of those are geared towards retail commercial uses. So it mentions RV and boat sales, and also bus and taxi terminals. And so in our review of the project and in our findings, we did determine that because the traffic that's generated by this RV storage use would be minimal, it would not further exacerbate the intersection operations at Presker Lane and Broadway, and that the use would generate fewer impacts overall than the other conditionally permitted uses in the C2 zone, that we could recommend approval for this use in this particular location. But the findings are written to be very specific to this location, because in general, in the city, RV storage is located in industrial zones, in the M1 zone. And so this would be a use that is not typically located in the C2 zone. But as I mentioned, your commission does have the discretion to approve it based on specific findings. So with that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission by motion approve Plan Development Permit PD 2022-4 and Conditional Use Permit U 2022-4 as well. I wanted to mention that we do have our Public Works Director, Brett Fulgoni, available on Zoom if you should have any questions. Mark Mueller is also here, our Principal Civil Engineer, and the applicant team is here as well, and I believe they would like to make some comments.
Thank you very much, Dana. Before we progress with that, I just want to, once again, any disclosures by commissioners of ex parte communication with the applicant? And nothing from me as well. Can we hear from the applicant? Name and business address for the record, please.
Yes, hi, I'm Jacob Weintraub, 1643 South Bradley. I want to first thank staff for working so diligently with me. Cody and Dana were great, and Frank also helped, so thank you for that. I also like to thank the commission for the really helpful study session that we had back in March. It was really helpful and gave us great direction, so thank you for that. We own a self-storage facility on Better Haven A Street that has an integral RV storage, and every day we get people coming in asking for RV storage places, and we're full. And so I just wanted to speak to the demand in the city for RV storage, and I think that like Dana was saying, the zoning is looking for to create services for the needs of the community, and I think it's a huge need for the community to have this RV storage. I know that there is RV storage on Better Avia that's going away, and they're trying to find places for their RVs. And so it will be nice to get the RVs off the street and into a nice facility like this. So I also want to thank staff for the recommended approval. The findings were very thoughtful and considerate. The conditions that I want to speak about, Dana mentioned, and I have spoken to Mark, Brett, also Shad Springer about the conditions. And, we're not asking to do anything that's outside the code or outside city standards. We're asking for the conditions to be made more boilerplate and get rid of some of the project-specific conditions that are in here. So the Carpenters Union had a tentative parcel map approved back in 2018. Looked at those conditions. There was nothing on those conditions about separate sewer connections or separate fire water connections. The PD that was approved in 2018, there were no conditions that had fire water or sewer connections, separate connections there. And the Carpenters Union also went through a building department approval process where they had their plans approved. And they've also gone through building department inspections. And so now, just a minor correction on that one slide that Dana had with the red line, that's actually installed already per the approved plans by the Carpenters Union. So the lateral was stubbed out for future development coming out of the private manhole for the future development. And so when we went to the city to get an encroachment permit earlier this year, I think it was, 1 year ago, 2021, because we were working with the city because they had the street open at the time, the Carpenters Union did, and we were trying to figure out what we needed in the street so we could get it done while the street was open. So we worked with the city for our own encroachment permit before we had the PD approved, which was great. We determined that we didn't need sewer, we didn't need fire water because it was already we were already accommodated for with the Carpenters Union plan, and we only needed water, domestic water. So we installed the domestic water that we needed for domestic and landscape, and they closed up the street and it was done. And not until we came out with the draft conditions did I see that the city was trying to have us go back and put another sewer connection in and another fire loop in, which we estimate, I was kind of bounced around numbers with Mark, and we came up with at least $100,000 for those two items. So I'm just asking the commission tonight to consider revising the conditions 24A, the second paragraph of 24A, to get rid of the project-specific information, and then also 36, the second paragraph of 36, which is also, I believe, project-specific. Again, we're not asking to do anything outside of city standards or city code. We're just asking to get rid of project-specific conditions that would force us to install new sewer connections and a new fire water loop. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we also have the architect here, if you have any questions for him. And I believe there might be another consultant, Lori Tamura, I think, is on Zoom as well, if we have questions for her. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm curious if we can hear from staff and as any response to what's just been presented.
I'm going to let Mr. Mueller go ahead and respond to those condition items.
Yeah, Chair Dickerson, members of the commission. The items specific to the site are clarifications based on what was presented in the composite utility plan presented before your council, or before your commission. The requirements that are specified, that are project specific, are clarifications of what will be expected at the time of building plan. These are in, I guess, forewarning, as Commissioner Hernandez had mentioned, of letting applicants know of requirements that will be expected of them at time of building plan. We're working with the applicant to let them know that the utilities department would not approve water connections to a separate water service or fire suppression system or sewer lateral. So those are not consistent with the code. Those are being clarified in our conditions.
All right, thank you very much. Questions for staff and/or the applicant? Commissioner Seifert?
It seems to me we've always looked at this project as one project. It just, what we're asking for here is a duplication of services that are already in. Is the Y in the street done correctly?
Commissioner Seifert, yes, the Y in the street is done correctly. There's a force main from the Carpenters Union that goes to a private manhole that then gravity feeds to a public main. The code requires all lots to have separate connections unless they're owned under, or I don't even think if it's owned by the same property owner, that they can cross property lines and connect. They have to connect directly to a public facility. That's specified in the municipal
Is
code.
the sewer lateral that's installed currently sufficient to carry all the waste that's necessary for this project?
I haven't been able to make that determination. I have not looked at what the applicant has not provided information on what the anticipated loading from the dump station. So that would be a determination from the
But if it
utilities
wasn't,
department.
and it's a public-private situation, it would be up to them to remedy it.
That is incorrect because they're not able to take on private, or they're not able to take on private sewer from another entity.
Their lines right now, what I'm saying, they need to be sized correctly for what they're proposing. That really doesn't have anything to do with the city. If they're not sized correctly, they would have to redo them and make them so that they worked in the future.
To be clear, are you specifying they being the?
The applicant, the owners of the properties, because the city is not taking ownership at this time of those utilities.
Right, but the city has a requirement to provide safe and consistent plumbing and sanitary sewer to all residents of the city. And the Carpenters Union is not a purveyor of sanitary sewer. They do not treat sanitary sewer. They don't have the ability and they don't have the authorization to take sanitary sewer discharge from this applicant.
How many bathrooms in the Carpenter unit?
I don't have that answer for you.
I think we're talking about a minimal of sewage here. And I think we're talking about a maximum of cost, which really disturbs me. The fire lines, are they spec'd in accordance with both of these projects?
I can't confirm that.
Yes.
So the cubic feet per minute, everything at all specs, you've had fire guys look at this, they've looked at all of the lines coming in, all the pressures, that this is going to work for both of these buildings, for the storage and for the Carpenters Union?
I did speak with Jim Austin, the fire marshal, and I spoke with the fire sprinkler designer of the Carpenters Union to confirm that.
So we don't have any problem with volume
Not that I know of.
in either the sewer or the fire sprinklers?
Correct.
There's two different owners of these properties?
That is correct. And if the ownership is an issue, I was talking to Shad about this today, and I talked to the Carpenters Union, and they're willing to come up with some sort of agreement, shared maintenance agreement, or some sort of agreement that we can record with the two properties to alleviate any of his concern. But I agree with you that it is private.
And if any work had to be done on the system, it wouldn't cost the city any money?
Commissioner Sievert, if I may ask the applicant, when you say if they could come up with an agreement, do you include the Director of Utilities, Shad Springer, in that agreement? Did he specifically say he's amenable to that? Because that is not the conversation I have had.
No, just to clarify, he didn't agree with that. I was telling him that we would be willing to come up with an agreement with the two property owners because it is a private matter. Everything from the Y beyond is a private maintenance concern, correct?
That is not the way our code is represented, no.
How would it not be private? If it's on their property and the city doesn't own it?
It's not that it's private, it's that the city has a responsibility to provide safe and clean and has a responsibility to make sure sanitary sewer that is approved goes to a public main.
Thank you, Chair.
Further questions? Commissioner Blanco?
Well, question on the access, Dana. So on the south side, there's an existing easement, and I thought I recall at a study session or prior meeting that there was a secondary emergency access that was going to be required. Is that not the case?
No, thank you, Commissioner Blanco. We did consult with Jim Austin, the fire marshal, and he determined that the secondary emergency access is not necessary. There is a gate that would be installed by the applicant along the southern end of the edge of the site. I was just going to back up to the site plan so you can see that.
Yeah, that's what I was asking, because I saw a gate there.
Yeah, there is a gate there, but it's not intended to be for emergency access. But it is there if it was needed, it is there, but it's not required by the city.
Question on the utilities. Was the original intent of the design of the facilities, utility-wise, intended to serve both parcels, and was it sized appropriately for this use?
That's my understanding. So the Carpenters Union plan that was approved and installed had a stub out for future development for parcel 1, which is the front parcel, along with the fire hydrants that are installed on parcel 1.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I tend to just agree with Commissioner Seifert in terms of just the technical and practical approach of what we're trying to do or what's being proposed. It makes a lot of sense, but we have to be, I guess, sensitive to codes and requirements. Even though it really seems a little impractical in this case, I think it seems like there would be a workaround. Anyhow, other question, is it just RV storage? Is there a chance that there would be any other kind of vehicle storage? Is it strictly RV? Could it be boats in the future or anything else?
Do you want to take that, Cody, or you want me to respond?
Oh, yeah, sure. Commissioner Blanco, so the zoning definition of RV storage does include boats, so it's possible in the future they could be stored.
Okay.
Trailers, all-terrain vehicles, et cetera. So we talked about that.
Okay.
And I did want to mention that Lori Tamura is part of the applicant team, and she's on Zoom, and she does have her hand raised whenever you'd like to let her speak. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything?
No, I think that's it right now. Thank you.
Commissioner Lopez, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When we saw this at study session back in March, was this going to be a temporary facility?
We talked about traffic and, oh, sorry, was that for staff or me?
Either.
Commissioner Lopez, no, this is a conditional use permit and plan development permit, which would run with the land, and we've not reviewed it as a temporary use.
Okay. Thank you. And then my second question is, and I know Chairman Dickerson brought this up at study session about setting the precedents. So I just want to be clear. This is a conditional use permit for use that's not allowed or specifically identified in the C2 zone. How do variances work? Are variances, do they have anything to do with use?
Commissioner Lopez, so variances are more have to do with getting a reduction in a setback or some type of, I would say, code requirement. In this case, it's a conditional use permit, and although the use is not specifically listed, I mean, if you go to the C2 section of our code, you'll see a number of conditional uses, and those are examples. And so the code actually states that these are examples and that the Planning Commission has discretion to permit other uses, provided that those findings that I mentioned in the presentation could be made. So it's not a complete list of everything you could do there.
Okay. Okay, and a last thing, I I agree with Commissioner Seifert and Commissioner Blanco. I think the city has to have some flexibility, and if it was approved for the Carpenters Union and for the future parcel, why couldn't it be used for this? So anyway, I think I'm in agreement with Commissioner Seifert and Commissioner Blanco, at least with respect to utilities for the water, for the fire water and sewer. Thank you. That's
Okay. Before we get back to you, Jacob or Lori, Heather, you had something?
Yeah, I just want to chime in on the issue regarding the utilities. The utility director and the public works director stand behind those conditions. They believe they are required under city code and city standards. It's not within the planning commission's discretion to waive or modify code. There are provisions in the code, particularly in Chapter 810 governing water service, that give the utility director some discretion, and the applicant could pursue that with the utility director. The water service, waste collection, and subdivision public improvements portions of the municipal code, when read together, as well as the city's standards and practice, indicate this requested arrangement is not allowed. I've been advised there isn't anywhere in the city where we would allow this, and it could set a terrible precedent because particularly the utilities director had significant concerns regarding this arrangement. Under our code, each individual lot must have its own service.
Can I just clarify, so is it the city attorney's office's stance that we do not have the authority to alter this?
That's correct.
So it becomes a non-issue for us. Okay. Jacob, did you had something, and then I think Lori had something.
Sure, I was just going to add on to Dana's comment about there is self-storage within C2, and I think a lot of the self-storage does have RV storage. And, I think to answer Commissioner Lopez, we are planning to eventually phase this into a self-storage if the market allows for it. But I think that would require a separate PD.
Okay. And I think Lori, you said, does she still have her hand up? I want to go ahead and hear from her.
Good evening. This is Lori Tamura. And I'm calling in regards to, or talking about the standard that has been come up with the Utilities Division. And, having done planning in the city for many, many years, this project and the policy that the City Council is bringing up, or the Utilities Division is bringing up, just 1 second, that policy hasn't been implemented consistently in the city over the last 35 years. We have a number of projects that did have private easements for sewer and water utility connections, and we believe that the interpretation that's being brought forward with this meeting could be implemented differently. So we're hoping that the staff would agree with the request by the applicant and change this condition. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Just testifying at a hearing.
Okay. I think it's gone. Further questions? Commissioner Seifert?
I'm not sure, but Lori, who's she asking to change the conditions? We can't do it, so who would do it? Staff?
Sorry, Commissioner Seifert, I missed your question. Could you please restate it?
I can jump in.
Thank you.
Obviously, a change to the municipal code would have to be made by the city council. There's also standards, and if you read through all of Chapter 8, there are things where the utility director has some discretion. So as you're approving the project, what gets a little tricky is that what's included in the permit are not just discretionary conditions that staff feels for this particular project our work should be included. They've also included some code conditions, but of course not all code conditions. So it gets a little murky for you all because some of these are discretionary conditions that we think will make the project better, and some are mandatory code conditions. The conditions that the applicant is asked to change are code conditions or standards that the city has adopted. And when you read the sections of the code regarding those standards and requirements, there is some discretion with the utility director. So as this progresses, should the utility director decide to make any modifications, that could still happen. But as far as your body, you're not making decisions on sewer and that kind of thing. That's happens later on with the building requirements as the project progresses. So I would ask that you not make any modifications to the conditions. There is a chance the applicant can work with the utility director and make some changes, or of course, there is always the right to appeal your decision.
Thank you, Heather. Jacob, can I ask you a question? Would you rather, I mean, we've been told by the city attorney's office that we don't have the authority to alter that. So would you rather continue this and talk to the utilities director to see if you can take one last shot with them to see if they're willing to work with you and modify this and then bring it back to this body? Or would you rather us move forward at this point? What would you guys like to do?
Can I ask Heather a question before I answer your question?
I think you certainly can.
Thank you. So what I'm asking for is for the conditions to be revised to omit any site-specific conditions and just reference the code and the city standards, because the conditions as they read now are very site-specific. They talk about the carpenters union, they talk about the fire, water, and I'd like to get that language out of the conditions and then work with the utilities director in order to understand his interpretation of the code better.
And I would not be comfortable with that, because I think if we start deleting conditions without having the utility director here, then there will be an argument that, well, they deleted that condition. They weren't imposing that. I think that could get very misleading. I would not be comfortable doing that.
And I would assume, I mean, honestly, that's probably a discussion you would need to have with the utilities director, right? It means, you know, if we start, you know, buffet styling this thing where we axe out some things and then we return it back, I think it either kind of stands on its own through a vote, or it gets continued and you talk to the utilities director as it stands, and then it comes back to this body.
Yeah,
What would you like to do?
I think it's best if we move on to a vote, and then I can always work with the utilities department and Public Works and the building department. And then I do have the option to appeal the conditions, correct, Heather?
Absolutely.
Okay. I did have one question here. The CUP on this thing, and, I mean, they would like to see, you know, references removed that is very specific to the site. But the point of our study session and bringing it forward was that we wanted to make sure that this was tight and it was very specific to this site. So I'm assuming that you, I mean, as the things stand now, are you comfortable that this type of project is not going to migrate to other areas of the city and have this, you know, this used as a precedent?
Chair Dickerson and commissioners, what I would say is that really the recommendation for approval for this use on this site is tied to what is essentially a failing intersection operation 500 feet south of this site. And we have had applicants come forward within the last year and a half, I believe, with a project. It was a retail type project that I think did come to a study session. and that project wasn't able to move forward because of the amount of traffic that would be generated by it to affect that intersection. So because we were able to write very specific findings regarding the situation with the area intersections and the fact that this project in particular would only generate a maximum of 4 peak hour trips during the afternoon commute time, I do feel comfortable recommending approval for it in this location. We do review plan development permits and conditional use permits. They are unique to every site, and I don't feel like this is setting a precedent because we have the situation with the intersection in that area, and we have these findings that are very detailed. I can't say that this would not apply to every C2 zone site in the city, and I would not recommend approval of this on every C2 zone site in the city, definitely not. But in this location, because of the reasons that I mentioned, we did recommend approval.
Okay. And then off of Commissioner Lopez's inquiries, there was some discussion, and obviously it's not before this body at this time, but the potential of having additional on-site storage facilities, that sort of thing. I'm assuming that that would have an impact on this. I mean, that's something that would not necessarily be favorably considered until that intersection is fiddled with.
Yeah, that is a potential, and it would require a new permit that would come to your commission for review. It would be a discretionary permit, and you're talking about whether, if they went ahead and added mini storage or
Right.
mini warehouses, yeah, that would have to have its own review, and we would be looking at the intersection operations at that time, again, probably get an updated traffic study for the new use. So what we're recommending approval for this evening is only this RV storage, and the findings are written just to support that.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner?
So on the traffic and the intersection improvements, I know that staff is working on the interchange design and moving that forward. Are there any improvements as part of that project to the Prescott Lane and Broadway intersection, or?
Commissioner Blanco and members of the commission, that hasn't been identified at this point. I would assume there would be operational improvements that would be constructed as part of the 135 interchange project. But currently, we're going through the PA and ED phase of Caltrans approval. More details to come. Once that's completed, we'll be moving on to the construction documents, and we're anticipating construction documents to be completed, I think 2025, with a construction date of 2030 when funds are collected.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions at this time? No? Thank you. Oh, one last one. Go for it, Columbo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my question has to do with the utilities director. What criteria would he use to say, okay, well, you don't need to provide that independent connection from the property?
I don't know off the top of my head. There are specific items in terms of whether it's a service line. I don't think the sewer line is up for discretion. I think it is I think it's about cross-meter connection, or cross connections and fire suppression systems that are specific to the utility director's discretion. Also, if the item were to be continued or a different composite utility plan provided, that could change what the requirements are. So the $100,000 number that was brought to your commission previously, that number could change based on what the applicant provides or proposes. That's a number that's just been discussed as an estimate.
I guess what I'm asking is it criteria that is project-specific, that whether or not you can service the parcels that are being asked to be serviced? Or say a new utility director comes in and says, oh yeah, we'll be flexible, we can do that. Is it kind of that kind of decision, or is it based on certain criteria?
It would be my assumption that it's under specific criteria, but that's not identified in the code. It's the utility director's discretion.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner Seifert.
Mr. Weintraub, you said you had a conversation with our fire marshal, Jim Austin,
Correct.
and his feeling on the fire sprinklers. What was his thoughts on that?
He had no issue as long as the system was adequate for the demand.
Thank you.
Other questions? Dana?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted, before we forget, I just wanted to mention, we do have some hands raised on Zoom for public comment when you get to that point.
Yeah, that was what's coming up next. Thank you very much, Jacob. Let's go ahead and open the meeting to the public. We have had some written communication, which has been distributed. And the public comments, is there anybody in the audience who would like to make a public comment? No? Okay, then let's go out to the internet and let's see what's out there.
Okay, thank you. So Kitty Courtney?
Okay. Ms. Courtney, you have 3 minutes. Yep, hello?
Should be unmuted. We did on this side of things. Does it show? Okay.
Ms. Courtney, can you hear us? No?
It's okay.
Are you muted, Ms. Courtney? Would we have any way of knowing? All right, well, let's move on to the next person and come back to Ms. Courtney at the tail end.
That's actually, she's actually the only one, so maybe we can go back.
All right, let's
to
go
her.
back to Ms. Courtney then.
Let's try again.
So, Dana,
Oh, there we go.
you have, well, this is Lori Tamora. Dana,
Yeah.
you're sending me a note to unmute, so I don't know.
All right, Lori, mute yourself again. No, I don't know. Take advantage of that. Ms. Courtney, if you can hear us, evidently, for whatever the technical issues are on our end or your end, appear to be insurmountable at this time. Our apologies. I would ask you to reach out to staff tomorrow if possible, and you can express yourself at that point. Anything else? Anybody else? Dana?
No other hands are raised on Zoom. Thank
Okay.
you.
Then we'll go ahead and, since there are no questions of the public or applicant of the commissioners, any further questions of the commissioner or of the commissioners for, no? Then let's go ahead and close the public hearing and let the discussions commence. Mr. Seifert,
If I have to go first.
because I looked to the left.
I like this project. I've always liked it. I think that it's appropriate for this area. When we initially approved the Wendy's and the huge motel and the other, I think there's at least one other pad there for a fast food, I was very concerned about the level of service at that intersection. And we were working with another individual at the time, and we were promised that, don't worry about it, we've got measures in place that we're going to fix this traffic. And the people on Prescott are not going to be implemented, or they're not going to have any problem with this. It's going to get better. We've got it figured out, and don't worry about a thing. And now we have F level on that intersection, and anybody that goes through there is definitely aware that it's F level. It's a nightmare. So when you say you assume that this interchange will be fixed, I'm not buying it. Assuming that someone is going to come in there and spend money and do something after we've already been told that it was going to happen, I don't buy that argument. I don't assume pretty much of anything anymore. As a matter of fact, if it's not stated, it's not going to happen. There's no money for it. So we're stuck with this level of service at this interchange for now. And I don't see it happening any better in the future. So a storage area, that's why we came to a study session, that's what we discussed, with the trips, with the frequency, only 4 during peak hour, that it seemed to be the most reasonable use for this property. I'm quite disturbed about this situation with utilities, which I'm told that I have no say over, but I would like whoever's listening to this in the future to understand that we do have private sewers and we do have private fire hydrants all throughout the city. And this is not unusual. And I'm not sure why they're making this a precedence or why they're on this particular project. They're saying it doesn't meet code, they can't bend or vary, but the lines are ran, the money's been spent, the tie-ins have been done, the people that are that are going to work up and down that Presker Lane have already had to sit through a very extensive operation with traffic control, opening up the street, having their level of service go below an F for that time period, and now we're telling them that we want to do it again. So I know it doesn't meet code. I know I'm not supposed to have any thought about it, or I don't have any say about it, I guess, but I would hope that whoever listens to this really takes this into account, that the lines are there. Everyone, as long as they work, I would hope that they could see the value of not redoing this work. As far as the project goes, I'm not sure what else we can put on that project. Really, we've had other people come to us trying to use that, and the trips and what we're going to do to those poor residences. I think this is the best use, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Blanco.
Yeah, it's unfortunate with just the traffic situation in that area and how landlocked that area is, and just I can't imagine anything more intense in that location actually working out in a reasonable way with traffic. So I do agree with Commissioner Seifert that this could be the best use. I mean, I think there are other amenities that the community could benefit from over there in that area, but I just don't see the feasibility of anything different right now. It's unfortunate about the utility situation. I'm flabbergasted also. I'm sure I've seen many situations like that. I'm not saying that there isn't a justification for requesting it from Public Works or the director, but it certainly baffles me a little bit. If it's not a health and safety issue or problem, I don't know why it wouldn't be strongly looked at. If there's a demand there, and I think Mr. Weintraub mentioned the demand, I think, we're here to try to meet the demands of our community. So, maybe this is a very appropriate use here. And if it's not setting a precedent like Ms. Edie mentioned, we're not looking to do this at every C2 parcel, then, maybe this is a reasonable one in this case, and the findings are reasonable enough to move forward. So, yeah, I think the project makes sense on a lot of levels.
Commissioner Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I agree. I think this is a unique property, a unique parcel with this use that doesn't cause any further traffic impacts to the intersection at Presker and Broadway. I'm in a complete agreement with Commissioner Seifert and Commissioner Blanco about the utilities. I have a question, Heather. I know we can't really make a decision on this. If we were to revise those conditions, would it automatically get appealed to City Council?
I would not recommend you revise any conditions because we don't have the experts here who have the knowledge regarding that. We do have Mr. Mueller, but I think that the utilities director may have other additional insight. So I don't mean to discount that in any way. If it's insurmountable to you, then I would recommend that you continue it so that there can be those further discussions. But the applicant indicated that he'd like to see the project move forward, so.
Well, I was thinking in terms of the sign, the monument sign over at the vet center. We moved it forward, city council heard it. Right? I mean, we moved that project without the condition of having that sign on there. City council, I don't know who appealed, I guess it was the doctor, whoever, appealed that. It went to city council. So we did move that forward, even though we may or may not have had that discretion. Here's the reason I bring it up.
No, in that issue, there was no code requirement. The commission, at the request of a neighbor, added a condition that staff did not agree to and the city attorney that said was not a good idea. It was then appealed and the council then deleted that condition. So that was a very different scenario.
I'm just talking in terms of conditions, though. I mean,
Okay.
the planning commission may make a recommendation to city council without or with conditions, even though we may not have final say.
Discretionary conditions. There are conditions that, if staff says that the building should be gray and y'all think it would be much better a different color or something like that, as long as it's not mandated in like the specific plan, that it be a certain way, then you do that's why I was explaining it's a little bit confusing the way all the conditions are mixed between mandatory code conditions and some discretionary conditions that staff adds because they think they would just add to the project. So you do have discretion on discretionary conditions that aren't mandated by the code. They're just things that staff has added because they feel that they will improve a project. I'm kind of struggling with an example, but planning adds them all the time if they want to provide an example.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lopez. I agree with all the other commissioners as well. Let's see, let's start by beating a dead horse. That intersection is an abomination, and we put our stamp on it because we were told that it was going to be made okay, and then it wasn't. So we learned that we'll be a little bit more circumspect on these sort of things. But in any case, so move that out of the picture now. I think that the city attorney's office has made it clear that we do not have the discretion to alter this, and we have asked the applicant, and they want to move forward with the process. So I think, for me, I would rather just live with the process in that. Personally, I'd like to see this thing approved because I think it is a good project for that specific space. I think that staff has tightened it up so then we're not going to see this rear its ugly head in other parts of the city. So I think that that's good. And then down the road, if the applicant then wants to talk to the utilities director, they can. If they can work something out, that's great. And if they can't, they can appeal it. So I think that we have to live with, in this particular case, we have to live with the process, just as the applicant has to live with the process. So that's my opinion on it. And at this point, we're going to need a motion of some kind. Does somebody want to make one?
I'd be happy to, Chair.
Certainly.
I would move that we approve Plan Development Permit PD 2022-004. Are these one or two? And conditional use permit U2022-004.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Kathleen, can we have a roll call?
Commissioner Seifert?
Aye.
Commissioner Blanco?
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez?
Aye.
Chair Dickerson?
Aye. Good luck, gentlemen, with whatever it is you're going to do. Okay, moving on to Starbucks at Home Motors Plan Development Permit and Conditional Use Permit at 1313 East Main Street. Do we need to does anybody want to take a break, a 5-minute break? Actually, let's go ahead and suspend this for 5 minutes. Be back at 25 after 8. If anybody wants to take a bathroom break. It's usually 13:13. Oh, she's Ladies and gentlemen, can we go ahead and be seated, and we'll bang this last one out and move on with our lives, especially Suzanne.
I know, I need some coffee.
All right, Starbucks at Home Motors, plan development permit and conditional use permit at 1313 Not Mockingbird Lane, East Main Street. Can we hear from staff? Hey, Carol.
Thank you. Hello, Chair Dickerson, members of the commission. My name is Carol Ziesenhenny. I'm a senior planner presenting the request before you tonight, which is for a 2,200 square foot Starbucks coffee shop with dual lane drive-through and patio seating areas. The request is being processed through a conditional use permit for the drive-through use, and for the building design, plan development permit is also being processed. So the project was presented to the Planning Commission at the May 19th study session public meeting. Your commission discussed the proposed site layout and requested the applicant to investigate a resolution to the driveway conflict that's existing to the west of the project site. And I'll be going over those redesigns that the applicant has provided today. So in general, the project site is located on East Main Street and is on a 0.8 acre portion of an existing 5.8 acre site at the Home Motors auto dealership building. It's within a general commercial plan development overlay in the Entrada specific plan. Currently, I'll just quickly go over pointing out the overall site area. This is the drive-through that was discussed earlier. And then there's a shopping center just to the west that has a very close driveway that generally tends to create some conflicts with traffic and turning movements in that area. Surrounded by C2 districts, and across the street is a gas station and a restaurant in a freeway service district, and then further down Main Street is CPO, commercial office, professional office for health services, and the Marian Hospital. So the site for the proposed Starbucks project is currently used for display. The entrance is approximately 400 feet from Highway 101. And this is an overview of the Home Motors site. Bottom left is the project area right over here. And on the screen, you can see, with indicated by the stars here, are the existing site photos with that driveway that I mentioned to the west, the project site, and then this is looking west from the east at the main entrance, which will be where the site, both the medical building office and Starbucks will be getting access. The dealership will be getting access off of Concord Avenue. There is an existing driveway here and one to the north, and I believe there is a smaller one just to the south here as well. So the proposal would include a partial demolition of the Home Motors dealership observation offices and observation deck to provide clearance for the proposed driveway and parking areas for the coffee shop building. The new building would occupy the westernmost half of the Home Motors vehicle display area, and that eastern half of the display area would be to remain for the dealership for their time at this location. Eventually, there are plans for a new dealership building in the Enos Ranch Auto Center area, and at that time, they would relocate and look at future plans for this property. But at the moment, they're planning to retain some of that site area for their vehicle display. So this is a closer look at the site plan. It has been revised since the study session. So the main change on this plan is a rotation of the building. So the main entrance is actually facing north, and the driveway is now coming along in a counterclockwise motion. It was still going counterclockwise, but the entrance is off in the area where the driveway, the existing driveway is located now. So the driveway there will be one access to allow for free turning movements without excessive queuing and traffic conflicts, as mentioned at the study session. A traffic study was prepared for the site and determined that the shared driveway will operate acceptably during rush hour conditions for both the project and for the Dignity Wellness Center to the northwest. Dignity has agreed to the new alignment, and there are no issues with traffic being blocked on the street or in the driveway, as was discussed in the traffic study. So the drive-through itself was analyzed using pre-pandemic data of other Starbucks drive-throughs from the Santa Barbara and Ventura counties. The largest number of cars waiting for the drive-through queue at any one time was 14 vehicles. This project proposes queuing length to accommodate a total of 19 vehicles. I would like to note that the traffic study had a minor change to the driveway alignment, which was analyzed to provide 17 spaces, but based on this revised version, that does move the driveway window up just to the north a little bit, and it does provide 2 extra spaces here. So the drive-through provides sufficient stacking. The westerly driveway conflict is resolved with the eastern access. Parking requirements and landscape requirements have been met with this project. So this is a look at the site and the landscaping. You can see the existing mature magnolia trees on the street frontage. The applicant is proposing to provide one more additional tree and on-site trees as well, with water or drought-tolerant, low water use landscaping and planting. Fruitless olives are proposed as parking lot trees, and the sidewalk is proposed to be rebuilt to allow for a meandering sidewalk to give the tree roots more room to grow. The grass sod on the existing street frontage in the parkway is proposed to be replaced with drought-tolerant, resistant bunch grasses and shrubs, and vines are proposed around the building exterior to soften the architecture and the environment a little bit more. And a patio is proposed on the north side of the building, which will protect the customers from noise and disturbances from the main street traffic, so it would be a more quiet experience for customers. This is a proposed site floor plan. The drive-through is on the east side of the building, right here with a pickup window. There's work area and a kitchen, and then seating, which would accommodate approximately 36 seats with storage included as well. This is a standard Starbucks floor plan with in-house dining, so inside dining. The building architecture includes wood siding, metal awnings, and large storefront windows. The project is also conditioned to require installation of climbing vines on the north, south, and west elevations adjacent to the drive-through, and on that headlight screening barrier. Vines will break up the massing of the building and provide additional texture and interest to the exterior. This proposal does meet the requirements of the Entrada specific plan with the use of wood materials and metal accents. This is a view coming from the high school, heading west into downtown. If you're looking on the screen here with the star, you'd be looking in this direction. Magnolia trees are not shown on any of these renderings to prevent confusion. It's just to show the building, to highlight the building and the architecture. This is another view looking in the other direction, looking east. This is the menu board, and then the driveway would loop around to the side behind there. And this is a view looking into the entrance of the drive-through over on the western side, where the driveway would branch off to the Dignity Wellness Center. And finally, this is the view of the pickup window and patio seating with the driveway or the drive-through exit here and parking areas in the background. So with that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission by motion conditionally approve Plan Development Permit PD 2021-11 and Conditional Use Permit U 2021-19. Staff is available for questions, and the applicant is present as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. As with the others, disclosure of any ex parte communication with the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, I had a brief conversation, looked over the project with Mr. Weintraub about 2 months ago.
Thank you very much. Anything else?
I talked with Mr. Weintraub, but I think it was on the last study session, but I don't have any recollection of recently.
Okay, and I have not, so. Why don't we go ahead and hear from the applicant?
Hello, Jacob Weintraub, 1643 South Bradley. Don't have a lot to present tonight or talk about. I just want to thank Carol and Dana for the excellent report and findings. I want to thank the commission for the study session that we had. It was very helpful. The recommendation to shift Starbucks over and block the 1207 driveway, we really looked at hard, and we thought it was a better solution. So thank you, Commissioner Lopez, for that suggestion, and the other commissioners for supporting that suggestion. We have Starbucks representative Talia Eckison here tonight. She's the real estate manager of Los Angeles and Central Valley region. So she's here to answer any questions that you have. We also have Jerry Sandel with Eris Studio on Zoom. She's the architect to answer any questions about the architecture. And we also have Russ Garrison here from Bethel Engineering if you have any civil engineering questions. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Jacob. Any questions for the applicant?
Sure.
Commissioner Seifert.
So the Dignities, they're fine with this, and so that's going to make the property next door to you, that's going to be a standalone property now with no drive-through? Because right now that drive-through, oh, no, it doesn't, does it? They don't connect.
Correct.
So, okay, so we're getting rid of this, so we're getting rid of a whole entranceway to the health center, and we're shifting it over to the right. And so now the people using that, and we have 18 cars, I believe, in there stacking. And what was our, what was our, Carol, what were we saying, what's the average for the Starbucks?
The maximum was 14 cars. So we have an excess of 5 cars that there's space for 5 extra cars.
Yeah, I can see this one getting used a lot with all the people going on the school and back and stuff. That would be my only concern, is blocking that driveway. I think that we studied, we talked a lot about this in the study session, and that the project fits the neighborhood there. I like what you've done with the shifting it over. I'm a little concerned with blocking the driveway, but I think it's a way better alternative than keeping the drive open to Main Street. But if Dignity's good, I don't see any issue with that. That's about all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. So on the main entrance there's 2 lanes exiting. Is one left and one right? Is that kind of the idea there? Okay. Then, on the issue of traffic, I know, we've had a lot of discussions about how bad traffic is over here with other projects, and in this area in particular, in the afternoon peak hour, I'm just a little concerned with, I know, the future of the interchange and how that might play into this, and we can't look into a crystal ball and know exactly what's going to happen with that, but is there, and this northbound movement, to get on the freeway is very short, that turn pocket's very short. Would this development sort of preclude a future expansion, especially of that right turn movement? Are we setting ourselves up for a problem here in the future if we don't have enough capacity for a right turn there?
Commissioner Blanco, I don't believe we are precluding ourselves from a future expansion of a right turn pocket. There's adequate right-of-way for us to repurpose for vehicular movements if necessary. If the PSR and PNED that of the 101 Main Street interchange identifies modifications to be necessary, right-of-way acquisition can be accomplished through that project. And that process for analysis has begun.
I would just hate to somehow disrupt their business if it moves forward significantly. I mean, I don't see their building, anywhere near the right-of-way, but, their operations and whatnot in the future, if the alternative for the interchange in the future is to expand that turn pocket, we're gonna need room along Main Street to do that. And I'd hate to set us up for failure in the future with something we could address now. So I just have a little bit of concern there, knowing how many personal discussions I've had with people about traffic over there. It's not gonna get any better, and, there's a chance now to make sure that we don't set ourselves up for failure, so I just have a concern about it.
Excuse me, Commissioner, could you explain to me what your concern is? I'm not exactly following you as far as the stacking.
So that turn pocket, yeah, that one there, that turn pocket to go north, right, is very short,
Correct.
right? And so if in the future, the desire was to extend that turn pocket to meet the demand to go north, are we setting ourselves up for failure or excessive impacts to properties if this project were to move forward, So I'm just concerned in the future that we're gonna have a problem here if we don't plan adequately for that. And I know this area, and everybody knows how bad this area is in the afternoon. This turn pocket is probably too short for the future anyways, unless something completely different happens here. Does that make sense? Sorry.
It does. I've just gotten so to where I like the roundabouts and the no stops
I
entrance
don't
ways.
disagree with that.
That I think that could be alleviated just with that, just alone. I mean, if we did more of those, where we had the no stop signs and people could just be freely to go through, we wouldn't need a big stacking lane. Everyone would be moving.
Right.
But you know more about the traffic than I do. I respect your opinion on this, so thank you.
Just a comment and just a question. So if we feel like, we're not precluding ourselves, I think that's good to know.
Yeah, Commissioner Blanco, at this moment, I don't have alternatives to show you or your commission that would satisfy all potential skepticism of what may or may not be required in the future. But I don't think the determination of your commission on whether or not this project should move forward should be determined by the future of that interchange. We can identify right-of-way changes at that time.
Jacob, you had an input?
I also don't think, are any of the on-site improvements on our property in conflict with extending that right turn lane? Because that right turn lane would have to be in the right-of-way, correct? I think, or am I thinking about that?
Well, I mean,
correctly?
I don't know,
Right.
That's the
So-
right-of-way line? Okay.
So, Mr. Weintraub, to be clear, if the city did determine in the future that right-of-way was necessary, eminent domain could affect your property
Right,
if we
okay.
needed to purchase or obtain additional
Got it.
property from you.
Okay.
And I think that is the commissioner's concern.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I mean, I want to, I guess I'm thinking about the future of this area for traffic, but also not impacting the development as well, so. And again, it's too early to know what could happen at this interchange, but that would just be one possibility, I think. That's my concern.
Thank you. Commissioner Lopez, do you have any questions or comments?
Oh, no, I'm okay, thank you.
No? Okay.
Good point. Commissioner Blanco brought up. I like that. And if Mark is saying that we're not going to suffer any consequences down the road because there's adequate right-of-way, I'm okay with that.
No, they were right about Presker. Anyway. Sorry. Okay, I have no comments at this time. So let's go ahead and open, thank you very much, Jacob. Let's go ahead and open this up to the public. I don't see any written communication. Is there anybody out there?
Yes, we do have one hand raised on Zoom. Ken I hope I say your last name right, Dalebout.
Okay, let's give it a try.
So, Ken Dalebout,
Good.
Vice President at Marion Regional Medical Center with Dignity Health. Wanted to comment that the hospital is in favor of this development of developing the Starbucks for a couple reasons. One is that it improves the current driveway situation and traffic flow, in our opinion, to spread it out down the street. So I think it's an improvement to public safety. I think it's an improvement to the economy of Santa Maria, and as a hospital, a strong economy means a strong hospital. So we're in favor of that. And we also are hopeful that this is a catalyst to the development of this property so that additional healthcare services might be able to develop and support the hospital in the future. So the hospital supports the project, and so we go on record of doing that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comment. Are there any further hands raised? Yes, no?
No further hands raised.
All
Thank you.
right, great. Any last questions?
Yes, Mr. Dalebout, he did, how do people get across the street?
Commissioner Seifert, the closest intersection would be at the Nicholson or 101 northbound ramp and Main Street intersection.
There's nothing on Concord?
There's not a pedestrian crossing on Concord.
I
You'd
don't
closest
believe
would be
that's
on
that's-
Palisades.
There's no stop signs or anything on Concord, is there?
No.
How about Palisades?
Palisades,
It looks
there's a
like-
signalized intersection for crossing at Palisades.
There is a crosswalk there, right? So
That's
they
correct.
can cross at Palisades, walk down, cross on Concord safely, get to Starbucks and do the same thing and return, or go the other direction?
That is correct.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and close this to the public, and any other discussions or motions? Yeah, I do just have one comment. I do think this is an improvement. Certainly, it's an improvement from what was brought to us before, and we appreciate the efforts you guys put into moving the pad and whatnot. And I remember back at that study session that Commissioner Seifert brought up that, you know, it's good to have a Starbucks there or a coffee shop of some kind close by all the medical needs. And so you'll have people there that, not only the professionals that work there, but people who are probably need a little cup of coffee for whatever's they're going through at that time. So for me, I think it's a market improvement. I am, I don't want to say I'm concerned, but I think it's good that we've shifted the flow of traffic. I do wonder how much traffic is going to flow in and out of that with a medical facility at the end of the rainbow there. I mean, you're going to have quite a few employees that are going to come and go, and customers and whatnot. So I am just a little bit concerned about that, but not so much so that I think that it outweighs the benefits of the project itself. So once again, any further discussions or motions? Commissioner Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There still is the ingress and egress on the north side, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Any more discussions? Someone want to make a motion? Take it out.
Could someone give me the correct screen, please?
There we go.
Thank you. By motion, we conditionally approve Plan Development Permit PD 2021-001 and Conditional Use Permit U2021-0019.
Do I hear a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that motion.
Kathleen, can we hear a roll call?
Commissioner Seifert,
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Commissioner Blanco,
Aye.
Chair Dickerson.
Aye. Congratulations. Good luck with it. Okay, well, gosh, I wonder if I can string this along right up to 9 o'clock. No, let's not. 5, oral reports from the Planning Commission and staff. Let's start with staff and see where we go.
Okay, thank you. So I was just going to go ahead and mention our upcoming study sessions and hearings to the end of the year, actually. So tomorrow, we have a study session scheduled at 1:30 p.m. at Shepherd Hall. We have 2 items on the agenda, and they're both pretty big items. So, you know, we'll try to stay on point with the presentations to get through each one and get those presented to you. One of them is Betaravia Plaza, and the other one is Skylight Homes, which is the subdivision that's proposed to go where the drive-in movie theater was located. And then our next hearing date is December 7th, and that's the only hearing that we have in December. And we have a study session as well on December 8th. And that's it. And then we'll start again in January. So those are the only announcements I have tonight. Thank you.
Can I ask, does somebody know when Maribel will be sworn in? When is she no longer a planning commissioner?
We don't know when the results of the election will be certified. I think they have to be certified by December 15th or
Is that right?
16th. So obviously, first, the election results have to be certified.
Certainly.
There's actually been a lot of movement, if you've been following along.
Yeah.
Not with Ms. Hernandez, but,
Right.
and then also, then she has to get sworn in and accept the position. So in speaking with the city clerk, I think we may still have her at the December 6th meeting.
Okay. That's what I was
But
wondering.
of course, we'll have to just see how those other items play out.
Great.
Because the city council is not having a meeting, whatever that, when's our first December meeting?
7th.
The 7th? Okay, then the council meeting is, they're going dark on the 6th. So she wouldn't have been sworn in and seated on the council on the 7th.
Okay. So we'll probably have her through the end of the year, and then as
Well,
we go into January.
on the 6th, then,
Yeah.
yeah, then I guess it depends with this, probably the same for the study session. And then we are not meeting that second Wednesday in December because I believe people had other commitment.
Right.
Or the Thursday.
Okay. Anything else?
Yes.
Oh, nice. Nice.
We might make 9 o'clock yet.
Because I've got a lot of questions for whatever it is you're going to bring up, so let's see.
It's just one of my little drive-around things. The Dunkin' Donuts, the mattress place on Main, they've got a big banner up now that says something. We don't allow banners, right?
Main or Broadway?
Broadway.
Broadway and Enos.
It says something, I can't even remember what it says. It's just a banner. They stuck it up on this beautiful brand-new building. It's right on Broadway. Thank you.
I think you can have banners temporary, but there's a time limit on it, so staff can certainly
Clock's
look into it.
ticking.
Suzanne, go out there, take care of it. Commissioner Lopez, oh, there we are, taking the time away.
No, I wanted to bring this up. I know Mark knows a little bit about the bike route or bike lane adjacent to Adam Basin Park. It's very dangerous. And the reason I say that, my son plays soccer out there, but there's probably 500, 400 people out there per time frame of soccer games. And when you park along, was it Railroad?
I believe you're on Depot.
A depot.
Depot,
So-
between Stolen Battles.
People try to parallel park there, they wait in the median, and then you don't want your kids to go out on that side, because traffic is whizzing by about 45 miles an hour, 50. And on the other side, there's a bike lane. And people ride their electric bikes on there, and they're moving. So you're kind of on this island to get your kids out of the car. There's so many kids out there. I just, if that's something we can look at least just for that, was it 2-block stretch? It's just, it's a very dangerous location.
Absolutely, we can take a look at it.
Yeah, but Saturdays, you guys would have to go out there and take a look at Saturdays, because it's hard.
Yeah,
Anyway.
A class 4 situation like that, bike lane where you have parking off curb is, it's kind of a pilot situation in that location. We don't have that anywhere else in the city. It has been requested, and it's been requested by the bicycling community, and it's approved in our ATP for certain locations in the city. So it's new, it's different for a lot of drivers. I understand the concern, the shy distance between moving cars, and then e-bikes weren't really something that were popular when it was installed 2 years ago. So that's something new to consider. So we can take a look at that.
Thank you, that was all. Thank you.
Certainly. Anything else?
Got the right reaction.